The salt spray stung. Lady Caroline's face as she watched the crimson flag rise on the horizon, a serpent coiled around a skull, the mark of Captain Morganna's crew. Her ladies-in-waiting screamed as the pirate frigate closed the distance, its black hull cutting through the waves like a blade. Caroline gripped the ship's railing, her knuckles white, knowing that within minutes, everything she'd ever known would be torn away. She was 3 days from her arranged marriage to a foreign prince, a political alliance that would secure peace between nations. But the sea, it seemed, had other plans. As the grappling hooks bit into wood and rough voices shouted commands, she felt a presence beside her, the Duke of Ashford, her brother's closest friend, a man she'd barely spoken to during the voyage. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. Instead, his hand found hers, steady and warm, and he whispered words that would change both their lives forever. "Trust me. I won't let them take you." The pirates swarmed over the railings like a plague of locusts, their blades glinting in the afternoon sun. Caroline's escort of 6 royal guards formed a desperate line, but they were sailors trained for ceremony, not combat. Within heartbeats, 3 lay wounded on the deck, and the others had surrendered. The passengers huddled together, merchants, diplomats, servants, all knowing the stories of what happened to those captured by Morganna's crew. Ransom if you were lucky, slavery if you weren't. Captain Morganna herself was the last to board, and Caroline understood immediately why grown men spoke her name in hushed tones in every port from Boston to Barbados. She was tall and lean as a rapier, with dark skin marked by silver scars that traced patterns across her bare arms. Her hair was bound in intricate braids threaded with gold coins, and her eyes held the kind of cold intelligence that came from surviving a world that had tried to crush her since birth. "Well, well," Morgana's voice carried across the deck, rich with an accent Caroline couldn't quite place. The manifest said cargo and passengers. They didn't mention nobility. Her gaze fixed on Caroline's emerald traveling gown, the jewelry that marked her status. "You'll fetch a pretty ransom, girl. Your family has 2 weeks to deliver 50,000 pounds, or you'll be sold to the highest bidder in Port Royal." Caroline's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced her chin up, meeting the pirate captain's eyes. "My father will hunt you to the ends of the earth." Morganna laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They all say that. None of them ever do." She turned to her crew. "Take her to my quarters. Gently, mind you. Damaged goods bring lower prices. The rest of these pigeons can be stripped of valuables, and I challenge you." The voice was quiet but carried absolute certainty. The Duke of Ashford stepped forward, positioning himself between Caroline and the pirate captain. He was younger than Morganna, perhaps 30 to her 40 years, with the lean build of a fencer rather than a brawler. His expensive clothes were already torn from the brief skirmish, and a thin line of blood ran from his temple. Morganna tilted her head, genuinely curious. "You challenge me? To what, boy? A debate on maritime law? Single combat, by the old codes of the Brotherhood of the Coast." Ashford's voice remained steady. "Your articles still honor those traditions, don't they? Or has Captain Morganna abandoned the ways that made her legend?" A murmur ran through the pirate crew. Caroline saw something flicker across Morgana's scarred face. Surprise. Perhaps, or respect. The old pirate codes were sacred to those who lived outside civilization's laws. They were the only honor among thieves. "You know the codes?" Morganna circled him slowly, like a shark. "What's a soft-handed duke know about pirate law? I know that any man or woman can challenge a captain for the freedom of a captive. I know that if I win, Lady Caroline and all passengers go free, unharmed. And I know that if I lose, my life is forfeit. But the challenge stands in the records. Others will know you honored the old ways." Morganna stopped, studying him with new interest. "You'd die for this girl? Is she your wife?" "No." "Your lover?" "No." "Then why throw your life away?" Ashford's jaw tightened. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because she's traveling to a marriage she doesn't want, to save people she's never met. And that takes a courage I've never had. Because every person on this ship deserves to reach shore safely. But mostly," he paused, and Caroline saw something raw and honest in his face. "Because I've spent my whole life being useless, decorative, playing at purpose in drawing rooms and ballrooms. Maybe I can do one good thing before I die." Silence stretched across the deck. Caroline's throat constricted. She barely knew this man. He'd been polite during their voyage, nothing more. Why would he sacrifice himself? Morgana threw back her head and laughed, but this time with genuine delight. You've got fire, Duke. More than most men twice your size. Very well. I accept your challenge. She drew her cutlass, a wicked curve of steel that had ended dozens of lives. We fight until first blood, surrender, or death. Choose your weapon. One of the pirates brought a selection of blades. Ashford chose a simple rapier, testing its weight. Caroline watched his hands, steady, practiced. She realized with a shock that he knew how to use it. This wasn't a pampered nobleman playing pretend. They circled each other on the blood-stained deck. The crew formed a ring, cheering and placing bets. Caroline couldn't breathe. This was insanity. Morgana was legendary. She'd killed men who'd trained their whole lives for battle. The first clash of steel made Caroline flinch. Morgana struck like lightning, her cutlass seeking Ashford's heart in a direct thrust. He parried, barely, and danced backward. She pressed forward, raining blows that would have shattered bone. But Ashford's blade was always there, deflecting, redirecting. He wasn't trying to win, he was trying to survive. You're trained, Morgana said, breathing hard. Where? Venice, Paris, Madrid. Ashford ducked under a swing that would have decapitated him. My father thought a useless son should at least know how to defend himself at parties. Your father taught you well. My father never looked at me twice. Ashford's voice held years of pain. I taught myself because I needed something to be good at besides spending money and disappointing people. Something shifted in Morgana's eyes. Her next attack was slower, more measured. She was testing him, Caroline realized, not trying to kill him. Why? They fought for 10 minutes that felt like hours. Ashford was younger, faster, but Morgana had experience and ruthlessness. Blood ran from a dozen shallow cuts on both fighters. The Duke's elegant shirt was in tatters. Morgana's braids had come loose. And then Ashford stumbled. His boot caught on a coil of rope and he went down hard. Morgana's blade was at his throat in an instant. The crew roared, anticipating the kill. Caroline heard herself scream, a sound torn from her chest. Morgana held the position, her blade dimpling the skin of Ashford's neck. He didn't beg. He just looked up at her, exhausted and accepting. Why? Morgana asked quietly, so only he could hear. But Caroline, rushing forward despite the pirates blocking her, was close enough to catch the words. Why really? No man is this selfless. Ashford's eyes found Caroline's across the deck. Because I've loved her since the moment she boarded this ship, he said simply. She spoke kindly to a cabin boy who spilled her tea. She gave her cloak to a shivering servant girl. She's everything good in a world that's taught me to be selfish, and I'll die happy knowing I was brave enough. Just once to be worthy of her example. The words hit Caroline like a physical blow. She hadn't noticed him watching. Hadn't realized her small acts of kindness had been witnessed, had mattered. Morgana stared at Ashford for a long moment. Then she straightened, withdrawing her blade. I was a slave once, she said, her voice carrying to the entire crew. Torn from my family in Ghana, chained in a ship's hold for months. A man I didn't know, a carpenter, used his life savings to buy my freedom. He didn't love me, didn't know me. He just said no human should belong to another. She sheathed her cutlass. He died poor and alone, but he died having done one purely good thing. You remind me of him, Duke. She turned to her crew. These passengers go free. All of them. We take no ransom, no plunder. This Duke has paid their passage with his courage. To Ashford, she extended a hand, pulling him to his feet. You won, not with skill, but with heart. That counts more. The pirates actually cheered. Caroline ran to Ashford, catching him as his legs buckled. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts, exhausted and shaking. You fool, she whispered fiercely, tears streaming down her face. You absolute fool. You could have died. I know, he said, smiling despite the pain, but you would have lived. That's all that mattered. She kissed him then, there on the deck in front of everyone, salt and blood and tears mixing between them. It was imperfect and desperate and completely honest. When they finally pulled apart, Morgana was watching with an expression that might have been wistfulness. The world needs more fools like you, Duke. May you live long enough to commit more beautiful stupidities. 3 hours later, Caroline's ship continued toward her arranged marriage. But everything had changed. She and Ashford sat in her cabin, her hands bandaging his wounds. "I'm still getting married," she said quietly. "The alliance depends on it. Thousands of lives depend on it." "I know," Ashford replied. "I don't ask you to abandon your duty. I just wanted you to know that someone sees your sacrifice, sees your kindness, and thinks you're the bravest person alive." She touched his face gently. "When this marriage ends, when I've fulfilled my obligation and secured the peace, will you wait for me?" "I'd wait forever." Caroline smiled through fresh tears. "Then I'll make this sacrifice knowing that selflessness exists, that courage exists, that you exist." She kissed his forehead softly. "And when I'm free, we'll build a life together based on the thing that saved us today, choosing kindness over cruelty, sacrifice over selfishness, love over fear. Outside, the sun set over endless water, painting the waves gold and crimson. Somewhere behind them, a pirate ship sailed toward freedom, its captain thinking about a carpenter who'd bought a slave, girl's liberty with everything he owned. Ahead lay duty, obligation, and years of waiting. But between them, sitting in the fading light, two people who discovered that the greatest adventure wasn't conquering others, it was conquering yourself, choosing to be brave enough to care when the world taught you to be cruel. The sea remembered their courage that day, and in ports across 3 oceans, sailors would tell the story of the useless Duke who fought a pirate, captain for love, and won not through violence but through the simple, revolutionary act of being willing to die so others might live.